Welcome to Nature's Guardians. I'm Micah Siegel. Each week, I talk with people working to save and help animals around the world. They are nature's guardians, and you can become one too. Today, I'm talking with Sam Ferreira from South African National Parks. Welcome to the show, Sam.
Thank you, Mika. It's really lovely to see you and be part of the show.
Where are you, and can you show us a little bit about your environment?
Well, Mika, right now I am in my study, as you can see, but when I look outside the window, it looks like that. There's actually a little stream in front of my of the place where I'm staying. And just last night, I had a whole pride of lions walking through on that little road that was like what you saw there on the picture.
Wow, that sounds exciting. And where are you in Africa?
I'm based in Skukuza, which is the main administrative and rest camp area in Krueger National Park in South Africa. So just to give you a perspective, Krueger National Park is about the size of Israel. So it's like one country in one park.
That's big. Tell us about your background and how you got where you are now.
I was born, of course, here in South African, and I see myself as a white African. I've been in Africa all my life. But yes, I grew up in the Eastern Cape, which is on the coast of South Africa. And I then had the chance to go study at University of Pretoria. And did some study work on mice and rats in the coastal forests of South Africa, and then had chances to work in New Zealand a little bit. And after that, I came back here and I started working on elephants. I literally went from mice to elephants. About 15 years ago, I got a job as the big animal scientist. In sandparks, this is the South African National Parks, and I'm based in Skukuza in the Krueger National Park, and my job is to make sure that whatever decisions we make to manage these big animals and let them be around for the future is actually underpinned by good science and good information.
So you work with veterinarians around South Africa?
Sometimes most of my work that I do with other people involve other scientists. So I work with scientists from all over the world. They obviously come and help study some of the animals that we do work with here in Krueger. And that's anything from small antelope like impala right up to big elephants. But of course, it's very difficult to work with a big animal like an elephant if you do not have some help from veterinarians. So yes, the veterinarians and the wildlife veterinarians, I do have a lot of work that I do with them in trying to understand what are the important things for animals in Africa.
What are your big research projects?
Well, by the nature of being in Africa, I have got 5 big programs. So the one is working on elephants. The second one is working on rhinos, and you know about the rhino poaching problems. The third one is working on all the big carnivores. So this is things like lions, like hyenas, a little bit on wild dogs and cheetahs. And then we also have a big project on the other antelope, like for example buffalo, and some sable and roan antelope. I also work on crocodiles, do some work on research work on crocodiles.
Can you give us an example about a research project you've done and the results?
Maybe the nicest one is last night I actually did go and I'm busy with some lion surveys. So what that means is you actually go outside in the bush and you take a big speaker with you and you play over the speaker a buffalo calf that is calling or hyenas that are busy feeding. So it's a recording that you've made that you play back. And then, of course, lions and hyenas will come and see what's going on. Why is this noisy, and is there potentially food there? But the reason why we're doing this is because we have done some work on lions, and and use that method that I've just described to work out how many lions are there in Krueger National Park. And yes, over the last decade, the last 10 years, the lions have actually increased quite substantially. So we have over 2,000 lions in the park now, but a real important one is it's gone from about 400 lionesses to about 600 now in the park. So that's nice. That looks nice for lions, but at the same time, we have a challenge because, as you know, the rhinos has had a hard time with poaching that's happening to them, and they got fewer and fewer. But one of our problems now is that when I've got so many lions and the hyenas too, the hyenas has doubled also over a 10-year period. It's about 7,000 hyenas in the park now. But what happens is when a baby rhino gets born, these hyenas and these lions they're smelling the blood when the birth is taking place, etc. So they then want to come and think this is an easy meal. So they actually sometimes injure the calf, and sometimes they even kill that black rhino calf, or white rhino calf. So some of our work is really about trying to work out how dangerous is it for a little rhino calf with all these lions and hyenas around. And in fact, sometimes we say we've done too good a job in saving hyenas and lions because they're now creating some problems for the rhinos.
Do the lions have enough food in Krueger National Park?
Yes, now the lions has got more than enough food in Krueger National Park. If you think about 2,000 lions, that's a lot of meat that has to be eaten every night or whenever they catch. But then you also, let me put it into context. So if a lion's catch something like a buffalo, and a buffalo is like a really big bull, buck or cow, they can feed on that one, and have enough food for 2 or 3 days, depending on how big the pride is, how many lions are in the pride. Now, Krueger has got roughly, at the moment, 40,000 buffalo, and then now you start thinking about all the other prey items as well, all the other species that they can eat. So no, the system is actually functioning very, very well in Krueger, to such an extent that we often have challenges because the lions and hyenas are doing too well. So they go outside the park, and now you can think what happens. They go outside the park and they find somebody's cow or somebody's goat there, and it's much easier catching that goat and that cow than a buffalo. And then that lion becomes a potential problem lion. It may even put somebody's life in danger. So we have to think quite a lot about how do we respond to that. And sometimes we go catch the lion and we have to take it back into the park. But now what happens if you catch a lion and you put him back into the park, he's going to start fighting with the other lions that's already in the park. So he just go back to a fight. So sometimes we have to move the lions to some other parts where there are not that many lions. And then sometimes, unfortunately, we also have to actually euthanize a lion. A lion that has killed somebody is a very, very dangerous lion. He's now learned that it's easy to kill people, and then it poses a lot of problems for you if you just release that lion anyway.
What are your concerns about elephants?
When you sit and you typically watch National Geographic and all these other sort of things, you will see stories about elephants and elephants being poached, and that's very true. And in a big part of Africa, elephant numbers are declining. But when you come to South Africa and to Southern Africa, so this is now Botswana and Zimbabwe and those places, it's the opposite. The elephant numbers are actually increasing. So, for example, in Krueger National Park now, we have the highest numbers of elephants in the history of Krueger. We've got over 30,000 elephants now. And when elephants are abundant and also using everywhere, they're spending time in the landscape or in Krueger, there are concerns what kind of destruction they may cause on some trees, for example. But probably even more important is these elephants don't stay in the park. They walk everywhere. we have to understand what is important for people and then work with the people that's living outside there with elephants in how we can best protect both the people, their crops, and of course the elephants.
Aside from rhinos, which species are you particularly concerned about?
In South Africa, the real problem with rhinos is actually not that you've got too few rhinos, and we've got nearly all the places where rhinos are, except in Krueger National Park, they're basically doing too well. They're too much now for the areas that they're in. But so one of the problems is that we do not have places which are safe for rhinos. There's lots of places where rhinos can live, but there's not places that are safe for rhinos. With regards to the other species, there's not particular ones that is certainly in Southern Africa that I would be worried about. Nearly all the big mammals and all the mammal species are doing very well in Southern Africa. I'm more worried about when at certain places in other parts of Africa, why are the mammals not doing well there? Why are elephants, for example, not doing well in parts in West Africa? And part of the reasons may be because I think the way that we have managed elephants or managed these things, that we not necessarily have considered the local people that's living with it. So if you are not getting a benefit from an elephant walking on your property, and the elephant thrashes your crops, you have got no reason to keep that elephant alive. You're actually going to say, no, I'm better off to have no elephants. And I think that's what worries me more, rather than one particular species, because if you don't think about it that way about all the species, you're going to lose many species in many places.
What do you think we should do about that?
Well, the very first thing is we need to stop having a National Geographic showing videos that exclude people out of Africa's places. And I'm saying that tongue in cheek, but that's a big effort that there's a lot of people that think that animals and people are separated, that the animals live in one place and people live in another place. If you want to protect animals, you have to work together with people that are living next to the parks, that are experiencing living with elephants or with any other animal. And you then have to agree together on what is the best way to protect them. And we've seen that in many places. As soon as you have got people working together like that, the populations are growing.
Can you give us a specific example of where it has worked well between humans and animals?
In northwestern Namibia, there is some desert black rhinos running around there. And that's an incredible example. That place have got local people who is a local tribe. They is in partnership with a government, and then also a small NGO that helped them to run their business and their money. But the big thing is that those people own about 90% of the entire partnership. So in other words, they're the biggest sharers. So they see so much value in that rhino being part of their life. It gives jobs to people that are part of that community. And the other thing is they were really smart. You can go there as a tourist and actually go walk with some of the local people there who's the rangers, and then actually go and watch these rhinos on foot. So they made a really, and this was an example where the people and government and NGO came together and they decided together what they want to do with rhinos.
What about rules and regulations? What can help and what can be done?
So, no, you're right. Rules and regulations is very important. So one of the real problems in many of these big animals that are not doing well is when they are poached or things like that. And that is typically people that are breaking rules and regulations, okay? But I think what we often get wrong is we think about rules and regulations to provide safety and security for an animal like an elephant or rhino, you know. So this is why we have these anti-poaching guys and the police are running around and they're catching things. But right next to that park, the local people living there are also experiencing crime, and they also want safety and security, and feel safe if they want to walk to school or they want to go and have a party somewhere or something like that. So that one of the best things that we can do is, if you think a bit about it, the rhinos and the people that are looking after rhinos are concerned about their safety. People that are living next to the park is concerned about their own safety too. So this is a thing where we've got something in common. Both of us and the people are worried about safety. So if you focus on something that we both are worried about, we work much easier together.
I haven't spoken with anyone about crocodiles. Can you tell us about them?
No, that's nice. And I'm a first here about crocodiles. So maybe I must tell you what happened in 2000, about, when is it? 2008. So that's nearly also 13 years or so ago. We noticed a lot of crocodiles that were dying in one of our major rivers. In fact, we went in and we realized that these crocs that are dead, the live crocodiles were eating the dead crocodiles. So they were getting the same, whatever killed these other crocs, they were getting the same things, killing them eventually. So we actually had a bunch of rangers. We would fly with a helicopter and then hang outside the helicopter and put a rope around the dead crocodile and then sling it out of the river so that we can remove those crocodiles that the others can't keep on eating. And then from there, we developed a research project. We know the crocodiles were dying because of the body fat. The fat inside the crocodile gets inflamed and then it hardens. It becomes like rock. So the croc basically can't swim properly and he can't catch food properly. And where that problem comes from links to what the crocodiles are eating. And if they eat rotten fish, for example, and it's sort of just before winter starts, so the bodies is already cold, that fish goes into the tummy, but because the crocodile, its body temperature is the same what it is outside, the fish keeps on rotting inside the crocodile. So it doesn't get taken up. So we know that now. So when we see conditions that's going to lead to fish perhaps dying or something in that period just before winter, we may go and say, look, let's rather get the crocodiles to eat properly a little bit earlier when the temperature is still warm. So we would actually go and euthanize a couple of hippos and let the crocs feed on the hippos, and then we break that cycle that has actually killed the crocs. And it's doing well. I mean, our crocodiles seem to be recovering now very nicely.
What changes would you like to see in how tourists see animals in Africa?
Look, I think it's important to realize when a tourist come to a particular part of Africa, where they're coming from. So any international visitor, of course, would have heard of the Big Five, and that would be their once-in-a-lifetime experience. But I think, and of course, then people that are from Africa, there are a lot of tourists that are from Africa that goes to African parks. They think very differently a little bit about what they want to see. They've seen lions many times, so they want to see some other things like birds and things like that. But I think the important one is perhaps tourists that do go and experience and see animals should actually think about how does these animals fit into the lives of Africans. How do animals affect people? So when you come to a park or a reserve, you're not just watching the animals, you also engage a bit with what the local people experience and what do they think, etc.
Are there any good examples of tourists learning about the animals?
I was out the other day in the bush and I was actually just walking a little bit, and I sat down in the sandy river. And I could hear, as I was sitting, I could hear the impalas having alarm calls, and then the francolins started making their alarm calls, and it was coming closer and closer. So I knew something was coming, and then all of a sudden, out of the side of the bush comes a leopard. It was a female leopard that came out, and I decided to just sit. And the leopard walked straight to me and up to about 50 meters away from me, and then the leopard sit as well. And we literally looked each other in each other's eyes. It was like my best date in years, you know. But it was an amazing experience to actually feel more than just seeing a leopard, but actually feeling the leopard's presence in the landscape. You heard all the animals doing their alarm calls. You sitting, you're actually feeling very vulnerable, you know. So you feel what the leopard's effect is. And I think that deeper, let's call it a more spiritual experience, is a really important part of us being people, of us being human. And in the tourism industry, we're not necessarily providing that kind of opportunities to let people really experience that.
If I could wave a magic wand and solve your top 2 problems, what would they be?
Look, I think everything I've talked to you now, the real critical challenge is how do we include people in the decisions about nature, and this means that you need to think about, can I enhance the well-being of nature and people at the same time? And I think we can. I think we can really become much smarter in realizing that our entire existence as people, as humans, are very much linked to what happens to animals and the nature that they're in.
So your goal is to appreciate the interactions between animals and humans. So how can kids help with that?
Well, I think you're doing an amazing job just talking like this already, and you know, and listening to some perspectives from old people. But I think the real important one is, and you know, I spoke a lot about having to listen to local people living next to parks or with animals. But I think the other one that we're not doing is we're not listening to young people. We're not listening to kids and what kids are seeing and how they. And it's really interesting when kids come out, and I mean, I have had some school kids from Mozambique once here, and we took them to Boma. So this is like a big paddock where we keep rhinos. We were busy translocating them from one place to another. But one of those rhinos were really tame. His name was Flippy, and you could call him to you. And just the fact that those kids could interact, could just touch that rhino, opened up to them then asking the kind of questions that you've been asking me now. And then as soon as you ask questions, if a kid asks questions like that, then you can start talking and tell stories and things like that. And that's really a lovely, lovely way, I think, to let kids, you know, get exposed to, but then also allow them to have their ideas and share their ideas with the older people.
Thank you, Sam.
That was an absolute pleasure, Micah, and I enjoyed the questions that you've asked, and you're doing a great job. And good luck with telling all these lovely stories to all your friends all over the world. I hope that you've got many of them. Thank you, eh?
And thank you for watching. You can help animals by hitting the like button and subscribing to this channel. I'll see you next time on Nature's Guardians.